Okay, I think we are live and about ready to get started. Sorry for the stuff hovering in front of me. This is the software that I'm using. Audio should be okay. If there's any issues, let me know. I've got the chat window open here. Done a couple of these before, so I'm getting the hang of it at this point. And here we go. If you're just joining me, hey, this is Kent. I am a sculptor based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and I run and concept and do everything for Void Realm Minis, which is up there. Currently, I'm running a Kickstarter campaign with a bunch of 3D printable spiral-themed horrors. They're inspired by Junji Ito's Uzumaki and Kingdom Death sculpts, and just kind of generally the weirder the better for me. I think I've put a link to that campaign in the description below. If I haven't, I will do that after this stream. But today we're going to sculpt a character for the campaign. I was really thrilled to reach a stretch goal of $4,000, and with that, I'll be able to add this guy to the pack. So today we're going to sculpt the Pale Warlock live using virtual reality sculpting software. If you haven't seen one of these before, I have a setup in front of me and a bit of a green screen overlay so you can see what I'm seeing the way I work. I'll be drawing out clay like this, manipulating it with my hand, maybe subtracting, carving away, and using all sorts of techniques. The software I'm using is called Medium by Adobe, and it is free. You just need an Oculus headset of some kind to get started in it. Before I jump in my headset, I just wanted to also mention that we are joined by my dogs, Jax and Molly. They are very excited to be here. But yeah, without further ado, I just got about an hour here. We're going to jump in. I'm going to build this guy completely from scratch inside VR here. And I will just get the chat window open. That way I can... if you guys have questions about techniques I'm using or just want to chat, I'm more than happy to do that. There we go. Okay, so that's pinned there now, and I'm just going to get set up. Go ahead and delete that. Get going. I'm still adjusting to talking while I sculpt. A lot of times I try to get in the artistic flow of things, and it can get a little bit quiet. And I don't stream very often, so this would be a bit of a back and forth. But like I said, feel free to ask any questions in the chat. I'll talk a bit as I go along, and we'll see what happens. Just so you guys know, I've pulled up a couple of reference images here. For the Pale Warlock, I want to use Nosferatu as inspiration. So this is that classic vampire from the 1920s, I believe, silent film. Really awesome, iconic character in the film world. So I have a couple of images pulled up here in VR to help me out in terms of how I'm going to think about the profile for this guy. This image I really, really like. And this session will be, again, about an hour. Probably this will be a lot of designing and sketching out the main forms, blocking in some of the anatomy. This will be maybe a bit slower paced than other live streams, if you guys have seen other ones where I try to move really quick and get a lot of cool stuff generated fast. This one I'm going to settle in, take my time, and get going. So, oh, David, what's up, man? Really nice to see you on the chat. Yeah, here we go. Let's see what happens. I didn't want to prep anything in advance. I thought maybe having some of the anatomy already blocked out would be nice, but I think it would be cool to just go for this one. So I'm going to do a lot of things off the bat here as I work quickly. I'm going ahead and giving myself a couple different layers so that I can separate the profile, the kind of nose and mouth area from the forehead. Yeah, so unlike sculpting something with a lot of tentacles, this does require some more specific anatomy, let's say. So cool thing about keeping things in layers is that I can very, very quickly isolate and change the proportions of things. So I know for sure one of the things that's going to really help give this guy some character is that large forehead. One of the important things with the anatomy is going to be to really hit the kind of flat area. The plane change is generally rounded on a human skull here, but then we get a flat plane change on the sides. So that's something I'm thinking about as I go along. I'm going to give him some zygomatic arches, some cheekbones here, and keep those on a separate layer. That way I can view. Back up a little bit and this cord out of the way. There we go. So I did a bit of squirting out clay with the clay brush, and now I'm using the move tool to start adjusting some of these layers. I know I want to keep his face pretty angular, that jawline nice and sharp. I'm going to add even another layer here for his mouth. Start kind of punching this stuff around, getting the relationships a bit. So I think pulling the eyes up a bit is going to help with the silhouette I'm looking for. Generally, the eyes land right halfway between the top and bottom of the head. I might, be shifting that a little bit for something that's got a bit more style and character, but I don't want to go too far outside of that. So that looks very skeletal-like for me, which is cool. That's pretty much what I'm going for. I'm going to start blocking in the rest of the figure pretty soon here without getting too lost in the head at first. But that's a pretty decent start. I can already see... I'm going to constantly see changes when I go back and fiddle with stuff. I'm also going to go ahead and really quickly take a pause here to save this out, so ignore the chaos on the screen while I give this a title. Boom. Sometimes streaming like this can really push the RAM in the machine, and crashing always sucks. David, you got a question. Have you ever developed any lore for this character already, or any of the other stretch goals down the line, or does it stay pretty loose until it's all finished up? Hey, yeah, that's a great question. I think the answer is both. So the Kickstarter campaign's got the 5e Adventure module that's coming with it, and that module is going to focus primarily on the characters like the geisha and the fisherman and the lurker of the bog, those sculpts. In my head, this whole world has kind of like 3 layers to it. It's got the sleepy village, kind of very Uzumaki inspired, that starts getting corrupted by the spiral curse. Second, we have the bog or swamp area near the village, where it kind of feels like the source of the curse is based, and that's where the lurker is hiding out. And I imagine that there's a third area, a deep underground cavern. And this cavern is sort of, if you've read the Uzumaki series, there's like a whole spiral city underground that these characters find at the end, and it's really epic and quite cosmically horrifying. So in my head, I picture something like that. I picture that as the layer where this guy lives. I have thought about this character quite a bit, especially knowing that he summons the spiral dragon, which is sort of the featured sculpt of the campaign. So I always have this image of him actually standing on the base that I've made for the spiral dragon, and having him sort of sitting in it alone at first, and then maybe vanishing as he calls up that spiral chaos. And I also kind of think of him as maybe like if you've seen Lord of the Rings, they have the voice or the mouth of Sauron, who's kind of like an emissary and speaks for Sauron in the films, and I pictured this guy as having a role like that as well, feeling very evil and nasty himself, but ultimately, serving that higher, greater evil. So, real quick, a couple of ears. Most likely these will end up getting a bit of pointed definition. And okay, let's shrink this down a bit so that and you know what, yeah, I'm gonna grab a new layer. I'm gonna actually color this layer a bit differently, maybe with a slight pink. You'll just see it separates it a bit. And I'm gonna lower the resolution and go ahead and block in, like really fast, a rib cage. I love VR for this. These planes and kind of establishing these planes are really intuitive in VR. And when you're dealing with like the rib cage from the side, this is a great example. You want to make sure you have that nice descent this way, and then the ribs coming back that way, and then the back sort of angling down. And because I have it on a layer, I can just constantly adjust the proportions as I need to. So, and another thing I usually like to do, even though you won't see this layer, is I'm gonna draw a spine. Hey, I'm just checking up on chat. Ella Music, thanks. I really appreciate that. I can't wait to see you guys paint them as well. I don't have really any time to paint, and I'm not that great of a painter for miniatures especially. So this is it's always really cool for me. Honestly, one of the most exciting parts about this whole endeavor and starting Void Realm Minis is seeing people print and paint this stuff. It's just really, really awesome, and very, very cool to see people spend their time and energy taking one of my sculpts that so inspires them and making it their own, really. It's pretty cool. So this is my really rough pelvis here. And then immediately having that layered out, I can kind of manipulate the tilt and things like that. So, boom. I already feel like his neck's a bit meaty. I want him to feel a bit more emaciated. But most of this is going to be covered in robes. I'm going to take a new layer now and turn off the mirror mode for a second. I'm going to draw some straight lines and then adjust those to about arm length. Duplicate that quickly. And then, actually, I like to block in the shoulders separately. Boom. So we got that now. And then, same thing down here. Let's go ahead and add. The legs can be a bit tricky for people. Mainly, you gotta watch for this slight jut out where the femur actually connects into the hip socket, and you'll have this landmark on the outer part of your hip, like right here, the greater trochanter, which will kind of come and go depending on how the legs pose. But generally, I'm going to start with one of those guys, and then I will pull this down, and I'm going to constantly, as I build this, rotate the model around and look at it from all angles. This stick man that I'm doing is really just giving me a general sense of the proportions and the balance of the figure. And I sometimes will rough in musculature and anatomy. In this case, I probably won't do too much because I think most of this is going to be covered by robes. So, and then we'll do one just bit. I will grab me a new layer here and build out a hand, a really basic hand. And I can see, and the cool thing now is like I can see that, and I just want to shrink this stuff. There's all sorts of guides and proportions you can learn when you're sculpting figures. Like, for example, the head is going to be 2 heads high to get to the middle of the chest. It's going to be about 3.5, 4 to get here, 5.5 to the knees, and 7 to 8 to get to the bottom. You can mess with that scale if you're doing heroic proportions, or if you want your minis to have a bit more detail, you can kind of size up the hands and head and stuff like that. It's a bit of a personal preference. We'll go ahead and now another layer. And I'm going to change the color again. And we'll start building. He's not going to have too complicated of a wardrobe. I'll give him a hood for sure. And the hood will probably be back a little bit. So a lot of what I'm building, I'm just squirting out the clay in the general shape, and then using the move tool just a bit to dial in the form a little bit more. Let's grab now, having looked at a lot of pictures, I do think I want to give him a bit of a separate piece of fabric up here. Probably that'll connect in the back. So, and I'm going to smooth this out really quickly, and then, again, pull that into place. And if I push with just the edge of this move tool, I can kind of flatten out the edge of that. So a lot of miniature sculptors are using ZBrush, which is I use ZBrush plenty. I will use ZBrush when I finish up this guy, and you can really get crisp edges and clean stuff. But I'm really liking how intuitive and enjoyable it is to sculpt in this VR sculpting software. So I could make these shapes, and I could maybe make them really precise and clean in ZBrush, but I don't really see a need to. I really like the kind of handmade feel that this application gives me. Hey, what's up, Cam? Yeah, you caught one. Nice. It's nice to see you on here as well. Okay, so now we go, and I'm building all this stuff on the mirror plane, you can see, but we definitely will be breaking the symmetry and adding to the pose. So I can already, I think I made his legs a bit too long. Try not to get caught up in details. I know I'll just be checking things as I go constantly and adjusting stuff. So I think I want this robe to really come back quite a bit. Alright, so here we go with so now, yeah, because he's a mini, I am gonna pull his proportions in just a bit. And I'm gonna look at doing 2 poses for this guy. I know for the Kickstarter I can get just one done for sure. But it would be nice to get a couple, so as you can see, I'm shrinking down the arm now, and I'm actually gonna delete this other bigger one, copy this one back over. There we go. 4K camera cam for streaming and painting. That's tight. I need some better equipment. I think I need a better backdrop. This is my messy studio. You can see some of my printers in the back. But I also do some traditional fabrication, or I used to. I'm doing lots of digital sculpting now. So my studio's kind of all over the place. Got a bunch of different multi-purpose stuff. So I'm still going to keep stuff on the mirror plane. One thing I might do, actually I don't see a need for it yet. Sometimes I'll take an object, copy it, and then in this software I'll move it up out of the way. This will be my high quality version, and I'll continue to add details onto this. Down here on the sketch, we can call it, I could turn off symmetry and start posing a little bit more, and then bring in this high quality version kind of on top of it. But I don't think I'm going to need to do that anytime soon for this sculpt. So, this is where we're at right now. Now what I'd like to do is really get a bit of this gesture in here. So I'd like to have him hunched over a bit, a little bit deeper into his robes around his neck, and tilt the head a little bit, and then we'll do something cool with his tongue. So blowing this up. Maybe that hood needs to be bigger. So actually, yeah, this is a great example. I will do this with the head. So with the head, I'm going to quickly grab every single layer. I'm going to duplicate them and pull them up. This way they're still on the symmetry plane. Come back down here. I'll merge everything. I'm actually going to lower the resolution on it. So this will be my dummy head. This one I'm going to go ahead and pose. And same thing with the neck. I'm going to go ahead and give that a little bit of a twist. I apologize if the view ever gets poor. I'm trying to balance constantly what you guys are seeing, what I'm seeing, and sometimes I end up working on a small area, so I really get into the sculpt. It's a gigantic in front of me right now, a really cool thing I can do. Doesn't work so well for the live stream because then it just turns into a huge mess. But anyway. So let's dive that forward and up just a bit. I like that. If you can see, I'm going to back up a couple steps. So I made this head a bit bigger, and kind of this move, going back and forward in time, kind of tilts it forward and up. And I like that because what I'd like to do is something cool, like I said, cool with his tongue in a second, as I've been kind of thinking about the pose. Let's do... Another thing I always like to note is that I am designing as I go here. So I might have done a rudimentary sketch, but I am not following a sketch. I'm not following any like plan on paper from 2D. This brings some challenges with it. I have to be really solid in my decision making, but it also brings a lot of freedom and flexibility to change the design as I go. And allow the sculpt to surprise me in ways and respond to that. And, make something cool that maybe I didn't expect. I have some chat to catch up on. My studio, my view is great. I have a wonderful view of the yard and lots of natural light, but, I see all these sleek YouTube backgrounds with, cool figures and dramatic lighting. Hey, Jonathan. Oh, good. I'm glad you can spot the Nosferatu influence. That's great. If you had come in a bit later, I do have some pictures up here that they're just there to remind me, as I work. Okay, one thing I was thinking we would do, I'm going to try this, no guarantees, is I think with this opening in his robes, rather than having legs or limbs, what I'm going to do is grab... We're going to go for like a weird tentacle mass of spiraling gunk. So the idea would be like wherever that robe is open, what I'll start doing, and I'll just put in a little bit of this right now, is drawing like as if it's almost like this fleshy mass of intestines or something, like not really human, underneath his robes, and this will I mean, you could paint that to also look like part of his clothing, I guess, but I kind of want to see if I can get it to a place that looks fleshy. I might do it just on the upper half where the rib cage would be. I might have it, one thing I could do is extend them onto the ground so that they kind of fall out. Maybe have them different sizes. Go in and ZBrush and rough them up a little bit so that they look really nasty and grungy. Yeah. So you guys probably recognize this sort of flow in a lot of my sculpts. I do really enjoy getting in VR and drawing out some curves and some spirals. Another thing I'll constantly be looking at is like, let me see if I can show you an example. There are sometimes little gaps in the figure. Right here might be a spot. That's so hard. Right there between the robe and the that tentacle that doesn't need to be there if it's going to be printed at such a small scale. So I'll make sure I fill that stuff in and make it solid as I'm working. So we got that, and then I think the other thing I'll do is also kind of trail some spirals from behind the robe. So if there's a little spot where the robe might be lifted like that, we'll take a new layer and, you know, very classic Eldritch type thing. Just since this is a spiral campaign, I'll make sure I got plenty of stuff twisting back on itself. And yeah, a lot of times I will even do all of these on separate layers. That way if I draw one, I can like kind of control where it's going. So I'm going to leave that idea there for now, and kind of come back and explore behind later. I do know that I'd like to give him some nice big old sleeves. And grab this color and just choosing my brush here too. This brush, the square brush, is what I use most of the time. It's because it has more defined plane changes built into it. So, just kind of following the line. Might be leaving it a little bit tattered at the bottom. And then once again, get that move brush, kind of hit it with that to move it into place. So I accidentally put it on the same layer as the kind of the main robe piece. That's okay. I can do a couple things to correct that. If I really need it separated, I can actually copy this layer twice and then cut away and split it up that way. For now, you know, I'm just gonna leave it and If I find that I really need to work on one side or the other, I'll revisit that. So that'll leave his forearm exposed a little bit. For the forearm, this is a miniature, so there's no need to go really insane with the anatomy. Guys, I'm emphasizing anatomy a lot because had someone, comment on some of my work in one of the groups and talk about how easy this stuff was to do, that there was no anatomy involved and you just kit bash a bunch of stuff together. And I take issue with that for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with kit bashing. I think kit bashing is awesome. And if you're making your own tabletop sculptures and you want your monster to have 100 heads and it looks good on the table to copy and paste 100 heads, like, that's great. I think his implication there was maybe there's some laziness involved with that. So I think it's important to understand how to kit bash smartly. And I also think, anybody who's spending a lot of time on these sculpts like I am very much concerned with anatomy and not just slapping stuff together. And like I said, I'm concerned with anatomy, and I'm using my knowledge of anatomy to help me in as much as I need it. I don't need to get into every single muscle of the forearm, but I do need to generally get the major plane changes correct, and make sure it's thick enough to print well and stuff like that. So I think his whole, actually I'm going to try and move real quick where I grab all the layers at once. I'm going to save it first. This might take a bit of RAM. So this is subtle. I went from there to there. And that distorted his face a bit. Remember, that's okay because this is just a dummy face. I have the actual face up here. If I don't go too crazy, I can very slightly get that point across. And I think just make the sculpt generally a bit more interesting that way. Okay, I want to check the time real quick. 6:08, about 20 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is block in the rest of the hand, block in the tongue, and let's see. That'll probably get me there. And I need another sleeve for this other arm. Did not mention this earlier, but I've got a bit of a tape or a steady stroke on right now, and what that does is it smooths out the curve as I draw it. You can see compared to if I were to turn that off and I were to draw the same curve, it's a little bit rougher. It's more, exactly where my hand's going. But the steady stroke helps keeps things smoother. So useful when you need to accomplish that. Thanks, Cam. That's cool. I like hearing that stuff. That people are enjoying the sculpts, man. One thing I will do in ZBrush is sometimes go back and emphasize or smooth out these folds a little bit. Just depending on how they kind of turn out. And I think I want this robe to go over the sleeves. So eventually I'll be probably detailing that in. Just like pulling this contour and maybe just like that. Another thing that will be important is to take a break from this and then come back tomorrow or in an hour and kind of see it with fresh eyes. And that will help me make decisions that I may be unsure about or fix things that I hadn't noticed before. Cool. Okay, so let's give some detailing to the hand now. I'm going to build this as quickly as I can for you guys, but this is going to be basically a bunch of stick fingers. And the trick is 3 joints. Each one, basically I want the first joint to be as long as the next 2, about. But I'll get this roughly in there, and then we'll be making a lot of adjustments to these. And then the hand I'm basically thinking of in 2 big lumps. This is going to look weirdly off until I start to like dial everything in and then lock the hand into its scale, but this thumb joint is going to come in, and then you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. Okay, and then 2 joints for the thumb. Okay, so there's our massive hand. I'm going to shrink everything down now. I wanted to make sure I got more or less, the hand proportions within the hand correct. There's a bunch of lines on the screen because I've grabbed a bunch of layers, and I'll push them down to a more appropriate scale. So you can also group these layers so that moving one will move all of them and things like that. For the sake of the live sculpt, I'm not going to get too bogged down with that technical stuff. I want to try to keep it as interesting for you guys as I can. So that's still a little bit big. It probably will get shrunk. I'll be like adding meat to the fingers and stuff, and then I'll be adjusting the size to make it work. But what we'll do here is, I think it'll be really cool to give him a tongue that he's holding on to. So, general idea, tongue's going to go down, droop, maybe snake around in his hand, fall back down, and spiral again. Something like that. It's going to take me a couple tries, probably. What I might even do is make some throwaway layers. Like this first curve, I might end up having to distort so much that it kind of loses its form, but then I'll retrace it with a fresh curve. We'll see how it goes. Yeah. And at this point, the other thing I'm going to really start checking out is the silhouette too. So I really like this angle for him, and I want to make sure that we see a nice silhouetted spiral shape. Cool. Now something I could do is maybe pretty easily is a variation where I could take this tongue out, and another thing I had considered was, hold on, another thing I considered was just letting his tongue kind of fall out of his mouth, and like down there. Or I had also considered maybe trying to do something where the tongue actually like really like goes around the body. Like it falls around him like that. And then this one would not be there. So that would be really cool too, I think. And I could actually pretty easily probably give both of those to you guys. Just change the tongue. And then this, of course, looks like he's summoning something from his hand. For example, now we can do this real fast. Maybe if we go right under his hand. A bit of a mass here. We could just do like a spell effect. We can do a couple of things with the spell effect. I've got the round brush right now. Might carve into it a little bit. Let's see what's going on. Give it a little bit of dimension. Maybe I'll grab, I can actually stand up to do this, and grab and twist it to pull it up towards him. See that? And another, we could like maybe, just for the sake of sketching, like there could be like a face in here. Might pull one of those screamer heads from the campaign, you know, with like an open, one of the ones that's got an open mouth. And then maybe add some. I'm gonna sit back down and find my chair. Okay. You know, a little magic effect. Like I'm doing this really quickly, but we can make something that looks kind of gross, has that body horror element to it, has lots of spirals to it. So this will take me quite a bit more work because I'll be needing to, of course, refine all the anatomy, refine the spell effect, check for like gaps, and continue to refine the pose a bit. But this is where we're ending up after a little under an hour. I'm kind of curious if any of you guys are watching this either now or later, which version of the tongue you like best. So if you like this one that kind of flows around his robe, or if you like this version where he's actually holding on to his tongue, letting it drape like a serpent. And then we had the other basic one that just went kind of down into his chest. We didn't spend too much time on the face, so that's another thing that's going to take me quite a bit of work. I've got the face saved up here, and I'll be really working on refining that Nosferatu profile and probably giving him those buck teeth that Nosferatu has, that's so iconic. These kind of like... you know, we're just about wrapping up here. I think this will be it for the sculpt for today. But yeah, that kind of feeling. I got a little bit more in the chat to catch up on. I like the one flowing on his robe. Yeah, the robe version's looking cool. Okay, well that's good to know. I will prioritize that one then. And then add that one on his hand if I've got time. And I'll make the tongue a lot nastier. This is also definitely a placeholder. It's a nice consistent tube. I'll be kind of making it thicker, bumpier, bigger, you know, if it makes sense. Refining it all sorts of ways. But I think the spirals on the bottom turned out pretty nice, and I think they're cool coming out the back. I might pull them in a little bit and not want them to be quite so far away, but it is 6:23 my time. Sun's going down. I'm gonna leave it here for now. We'll throw a turntable on him real quick. Boo. And get the turntable to go slow. I hope those of you guys that were able to tune in enjoyed this, whether you are able to watch it live or later. You can ask me any questions in the chat below. I really like sharing sculpting tips, techniques, cool monsters. You know, I'm always love to hear inspiration and what you guys are enjoying as well, especially for the month of Halloween. Thank you. Thanks, David. Just finishing up, catching up on the chat there. Yeah, I think this will be a really cool character that'll handle the spiral theme really well and feel pretty gross and twisted, and maybe also apply, maybe be useful in other campaigns or other games that you guys have. Certainly, he could probably function as a warlock for wargaming. Probably a classic Tzeentch army, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, stay tuned. I'm going to be posting more updates on the Kickstarter with information about the 5e one-shot campaign that's being written. by Alex, and a couple other bonuses. I'm trying to hold on to couple surprises till the end of the campaign. If you get a chance, please like, share, subscribe to my channel, share the campaign with your friends. The more money I can raise, the more stretch goals I get to make time to unlock. Thanks again to all of you for all your support. I'm going to sign off for now, and be on the lookout for another live stream. Take care, everybody. We will sculpt